1.5, stay alive.
Since the middle of the last century, the temperature in the Caribbean has increased by 1.0 degrees Celsius. This is higher than the global average that we have been seeing for the past 150 years. In Guyana, sea levels are rising at 5 times the rate that we're seeing globally. So these are having tremendous impacts on several sectors of the Caribbean.
Que sera, sera. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, whatever will be. Just let it be. Let it be. You could be prepared and prevent some disaster.
If the increase in temperature for globally goes above 1.5 degrees Celsius, that the impact on our islands is going to be extremely harsh. Every year, one of the things that the Caribbean region has to face every year is the whole issue of cyclones, tropical cyclones. Now, with tropical cyclones, bring a lot of winds and a lot of rainfall and so forth. Now, with that complicating the whole issue of sea level rise, we're going to have even more destruction in our coastal areas. A lot of our road network is in our coastal areas. A lot of our housing is in our coastal areas. A lot of our productive sectors are in the coastal areas. So the most dramatic aspect will be a serious destruction or damage to the population of the Caribbean region, where a lot of them will either be displaced or dead. In order for our children to have a similar lifestyle, we have to ensure, or we have to get the international community to understand that we have to do everything in our power to curb the increase in global temperatures and try to ensure it doesn't go above a 1.5 degrees increase.
When we were going to school as meteorologists, we knew it used to take 1 day for a tropical wave to develop into a tropical depression, another day for it to develop into a tropical storm, another day to develop into a Category 1 hurricane, another day to a Category 2 hurricane, and so on. However, in the past decade or so, we're seeing tropical depressions explode into Category 4 hurricanes in less than 24 hours. That means that our people are not prepared for these stronger hurricanes that are now occurring, and hence our warning systems have to be revived to account for these exploding hurricanes across the Caribbean.
When we look at the whole issue of all of the small island developing states worldwide, we contribute less than 1% to the whole issue of global warming. Yet, we are the most vulnerable in this part of the world. It is a result of what the countries in the bracket of developed countries is what they would have done in the past that has brought us to this stage. Therefore, we see it as a necessity for these same countries to help us get out of this stage.
1.5. Stay alive. What does it work? Destroying the environment, slowly killing Mother Nature, Earth, from whence life was given birth. Powerful nation, chemical industrialization, deforestation, direct greenhouse effect, corporate greed, polluting the air we breathe, altering the ozone layer. We're living in fear. Glacier melting, sea level rising. In Belize where I'm living, the effect is devastating. Unprecedented flooding, mud, slug, debris, contaminated water, disease, tropical storm, rain, pain, people dying in vain. I wonder, who is to blame? Global warming, alarming. Global warming, alarming. Global warming, alarming. Global warming, alarming. Oil exploration, salinization, coral bleaching, reef dying, killing the fishery. Oh, what a calamity. But the 1.5 to stay alive. We in the Caribbean have a 50-50 chance of being extinct. Cause global warming, harming. Global warming, alarming.
When the people came from Africa and from South America came together and they had children, a new group of people was born. And those people are the Garifuna. Now the Garifuna people established themselves on the island of St. Vincent. They worked the sea to get fish, they worked the land, and so the idea of Aubu Amurunu, I for you and you for me, which is very, very important for the Garifuna people, came into existence. The idea is that if I have a little, I must share. The idea is that you must take care of the earth, and the earth will take care of you. You must take care of the people around you, and the people around will take care of you. If you take care of the environment will give you food. And if you don't take care of it, well, bad things begin to happen. There is something called climate change, where the sea levels are rising because of the things that people are doing. People around the world are not taking care of the earth the way they should. They cut down the trees, they use fuels that cause the earth to get warm. And you know who are going to suffer if those things continue to happen? It is the people who live along the coast, near the sea. Where are Garifuna communities usually located? They're usually located near the sea. And if the sea rises, then some places where people have their homes will be flooded. The sea will cover those places. So we have to be careful that everybody around the world should take care of the earth and not do things that will affect our people. Okay, boys and girls, that's our class for today. You may leave.
Baba na frendera, Dio Chakaluma, Baba na frendera, the Araboluma, Baba na frendera, I made it again, oh my Baba na frendera, Dio Chaka. Ayanu Atina, Nabayuba Puma, Asibi Hanuma, Luabu Wikatele, Yanu Atina,
Climate change is probably the most serious thing that faces our planet this century. There are other things that seem more urgent, but this is the big monster that's going to change life on Earth. We have been warming our planet, not just the atmosphere. Global warming is the solar radiation, the longer wavelength, bouncing off the Earth's surface, the ocean surface, the ice surface, and being caught by greenhouse gases, carbon dioxide, nitrous oxide, methane, and turned into heat. And that's warming our atmosphere. But almost all that heat immediately goes into the ocean. And that's the monster in the system. We are warming our ocean.
In simple terms, a coral reef is a living ecosystem made up of colonial animals, corals, and reefs provide homes to thousands, if not millions, of organisms. It also provides very important shoreline protection for all the countries of the Caribbean because it helps to buffer wave energy, especially during storms. That helps to reduce or prevent erosion of the coasts. It also provides very important fisheries functions, things like conch and lobster, all the groupers that we love and all the snappers that we love to eat. A young fish, a young reef fish like a snapper or grouper, when they hatch out on the reef, the currents carry them in after a few days where they settle within mangroves that act as nurseries for them. It's sheltered, it's protected, it allows them to feed and grow up in safety into juveniles, at which point they migrate, they leave out, they go past through seagrass beds. Most of the adults, they would then move out and migrate to the reefs. So the mangroves, the seagrass, the coral reefs form a very important linkage there in ensuring that we have healthy fisheries and ensuring we have healthy overall reef ecosystem.
Science say that all the ozone layer is depleting and that global warming is everywhere. Poison pollutants in the atmosphere, but seem like no one really cares. Whoa, whoa, let me tell you, friend, what they do, they say is for you and you and you. Conglomerate business in this for themselves, but they don't care for no one else. We gotta stop them from polluting, stop them from poisoning, stop them from killing Mother Earth. Oh, stop them from cutting trees, damming up precious rivers, stop them from poisoning of the soil. Oh, let me tell you why. Oh Lord, let me tell you why. Oh, our attitude has really got to change, and our priorities rearrange. Our rivers that used to run in Belize run no more. Those existing poison for sure. Whoa, whoa, for you and you and you. Conglomerate business in this for themselves, but they don't care for no one else. We gotta stop them from polluting, stop them from poisoning, stop them from killing Mother Earth. Oh Lord, stop them from cutting trees, damming our precious rivers, stop them from poisoning of the soil. Oh Lord, let me tell you why. Oh, I want to tell you why. What they do, they say is for you and you and you. Conglomerate business in this for themselves, but they don't care for no one else.
Corals like cool temperatures. They're not created to live, and they're not made to live in very high temperatures. And so when temperatures get very high, above 29, 30, 31 degrees Celsius, they become stressed. And when that happens, they become white and clear, and they lose all their color. They will starve and they will die.
Right behind me is Miami Beach, and right in front of me is the world's third longest barrier reef. Unfortunately, all the coral on this reef has died. With it, we lost all of our fish, and with that, we lost the protection that the coral reef gives for storm surge that hits Miami Beach. This reef is dead, and it will probably never come back.
These buoys are called coral reef early warning systems, right? And what they are is a combination of atmospheric and oceanographic instrumentation, which together used with a biological monitoring system is how we're able to relate atmospheric changes, like a climate change, for example, to the impacts on our coral reef system here in Tobago. In 2010, we experienced a severe bleaching event. We had more than 70% of our reefs bleached, and we had about 10 to 30% bleaching-induced mortality right here in Tobago.
Carbon dioxide emissions into the atmosphere eventually go into the oceans, and as a result of that, we're going to see our reefs being eroded, being unable to withstand the stronger hurricanes. We're going to lose the natural barriers around our countries, and hence we're going to see our coral reefs dying as a result of increasing acidification in the Caribbean.
We are very concerned because if our reef system goes, there goes the livelihoods of quite a few of our people in the coastal communities or fisher folk, and that has even worse implications for the health of the Caribbean, in that a significant amount of our protein intake, say about 65 to 70%, comes from the marine environment. So you can imagine if that is removed from the Caribbean table.
Population of fishes are going to be displaced. So you're going to have fish moving from warmer waters to a little bit more cooler waters. And as a result of that, our fishermen within the region are going to have it even harder in terms of going out and making catches and being able to make a livelihood and also provide food for their family as a result of this. So you have a tremendous burden and a spread of adversity being placed on the Caribbean people without them having really much to do about why we are at this state.
As we measure sea level across the world with tide gauges, we know that the sea level is now rising at a rate of about 3 millimeters per year. Yet, measurements that we have taken in Belize, in Tobago, in Guyana show that here the sea is now rising at a rate 5 times greater than we're seeing globally.
What you're seeing is actually the effects of the coastal erosion that has taken place in Monk River over the past 20 to 25 years. Where the pelicans are sitting just beyond some 50 meters was the extent of where the community lies, and where we had residential and sporting facilities such as the football field that I grew up playing on, that today no longer exists for our community kids to play. So this is a great loss for this community. And where I currently stand is the main street, what's left of the main street in the community. Beyond this point is actually the limits of our cemetery, and we are seeing now that our cemetery is actually being threatened by the sea. If something is not being done, we'll be losing the cemetery as well.
My name is Chucky Verde. I am chairman of the Point Oshan Indian tribe. Our tribe is named after this bayou right here that is called Potashia Bayou. It flows into the Gulf of Mexico, and our tribe has always been over here. We were the first people. People were fishermen, farmers, and we've always been self-sufficient. We did pretty good, in fact. We're hoping to live over here a long time, but with the sea level rising, we're kind of scared that in the next 40, 50 years that we won't be exist over here anymore. And then right now, back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s up to now, it's accelerating all the time. The land is being overtaken by water. So once where we used to plant and people used to live on hard ground, now it's all marshy, it's all mucky water. The trees are dying because of the salt water coming in. They can't tolerate the salt water, so it kills them. One of the deals we want with federal recognition is once this land goes all underwater and it's, we can't live over here no more, we're hoping that we could move, buy a big old tract of land further up north, in the middle of the state or whatever, and move as a tribe where we could hold our people together as a tribe. Because if you can't hold our people together in a community, then the tribe's broken up. That's why we want a place where we could all move together and exist as one people.
The land is gone. It's all washed away. The land is gone. And it's getting washed away every day. Voice of the wetlands is trying to take a stand. Katrina came in here, flooded all of New Orleans. Katrina came in here,
She flooded all of New Orleans. Even though she was a bad girl, coastal erosion is much more mean. Oh, play women. Hey! Look at here. The land is gone, washing away every day. The land is gone, washing away every day. You know we got to fight on. Make a new way. Wait a minute, look. I wasn't born with no steering gear. I wasn't born with no steering gear. I wasn't born with no steering gear. I wasn't born with no gears and scales. But if we don't stop this erosion, we're gonna be swimming with the whales. Oh, swim, y'all, swim.
I grew up here on Miami Beach. It never flooded at high tide like this. This is all salt water. 10, 12 years ago, it started coming onto the land. You know, Miami-Dade County is going to lose $3.2 trillion of infrastructure, stuff that's going to go away that we built. And they're still building. These guys are crazy. They're crazy.
So, welcome to Miami Beach, the most vulnerable city with respect to assets at risk with sea level rise, because probably within 30 to 40 years we will begin serious evacuation or migration off of Miami Beach. We're very close to the global sea level rise and the local sea level rise that is going to cause a permanent inundation. Only 11% of Miami-Dade County will be above a full moon high tide by the end of the century. Only 11%.
This is what Miami-Dade County looks like today. With 1 foot of sea level rise, you lose all of South Miami-Dade County. Turkey Point nuclear power plant is an island. All these multi-million-dollar houses along Biscayne Bay, the east side of Biscayne Bay, are gone. Miami Beach is starting to disappear.
We're in the Everglades, the river of grass. This is the way South Florida has been for thousands of years. All this fresh water, it's beautiful. This is where we get our drinking water from in South Florida. With 1.5 feet of sea level rise, all of this changes, becomes salt water, and it disappears.
By the end of the century, we could be at 4 to 6.6 feet by the current U.S. government projections that incorporate ice melt. And these do not incorporate the accelerations that we are seeing in the ice melt on Greenland and the accelerations in the floating ice melt and the warming of the Arctic.
And that's all of South Florida right there. Say bye-bye, bye-bye.
Our governor does not sure human-induced climate change is real. One of our senators, U.S. senators, is not sure climate change is real. What Miami Beach is doing is putting some $300 million into the attempts at a short-term fix, just moving the water that comes in away.
What you see here behind me is the city of Miami Beach's attempt to keep the water off the streets of Miami Beach when the king tide comes through pumping systems that cost $300 million. it's not going to work. They'll be able to keep the water off and pump it back into Biscayne Bay as sea level rises and the king tide comes, but they should be spending $300 million on fixing the problem of global warming.
So can we keep exacerbating the problem by putting more and more resources to preserve this high income area? Well, what do you do in other parts of the world that can't afford this kind of development, that can't afford those kind of technologies, that can't afford or are the least adapted to deal with the problems we're creating by spinning the wheel faster and faster?
If you take the Dutch in Amsterdam, they were able to put up flood defenses and sea defenses for a 1 in 1,000 year event. We in the Caribbean, with the economies that we have, can barely muster the resources to respond to 1 in a 5 year event.
Mes amis, qui ça yo fait avec pays ça? Mes amis, qui ça nous fait avec pied bois nous yo? Qui ça nous fait avec sous l'eau nous yo? Mes amis, nous pas jamais regarder côté la mer nous yo ye? Comment que pas même gen bon poisson pour nous manger? Mais qui ça nous fait avec côté la mer nous yo? Mais qui ça n'a fait avec pays ça? Parce que m'ta remè nous quitter un bel petit pays. J'ai eu te connaître l'archipel des Antilles pour tout petit vie, pour tout petit monde, pour toute génération qui vini. Pays d'Haïti, c'est lumière, soleil. Pour clairer, chemin, l'espoir. C'est un travail, nous gain pour faire ensemble, mais nous tous ensemble. Pour tout ça, cap vin derrière. On pas oublier, ne Congo nago, daomen nou yo. Pas oublier, misère, yo te passé. Mais yo bataille, yo travail, puis yo banou liberté. Pour tout ça, cap vin derrière.
En plus d'être placé sur la trajectoire des ouragans et des cyclones, Haïti a une situation économique et environnementale qui accentue sa vulnérabilité aux aléas climatiques. Haïti est placé 4e pays plus vulnérable dans le monde par rapport au changement climatique. Et c'est ici que la communauté internationale intervient avec la mise à disposition des pays comme Haïti de ressources financières capables d'aider ces pays à s'adapter aux impacts des changements climatiques.
Merci mon Dieu, gardez déjà la réserve. Merci mon Dieu, gardez déjà la nature côté pour nous. La pluie tombée, maïs poussé, tout le monde qui grand goût, allez manger. On nous chanter bongo, on nous danser ibo. Papa bon Dieu qui dansait la misère a fini. Misère a fini pour nous, misère a fini.
Since 1995, we have had about 6 or 7 severe coral bleaching episodes. It is affecting our mangroves and our seagrass beds. So this is the life source of our fishing sector, and so our fishing community is being affected by temperature rises. Sea levels is already rising and is causing tremendous erosion across the low-lying states of the Caribbean, again affecting where people live and their sources of livelihood. The saltwater intrusion is affecting our coastal aquifers and is causing salinization of our agricultural lands along the sea. So our agriculture and food security is being affected. And finally, our tourism sector. Most of the people who come to the Caribbean come for our beaches, come for the seas. And if we have a coral reef that is dying, if we have fish that is moving away, if our beaches are no longer there, then our tourism sector, which is the life source of the Caribbean, is being adversely affected.
Our main income generator is tourism. Tourism is basically built on the foundation of ecological resources.
Belize is known as an ecotourism destination, and we're well known for our Blue Hole. Blue Hole is a famous diving spot in Belize, and the Belize Barrier Reef itself is the second longest reef in the world. So because of these features of our reef, we have about 80% of our visitors that come. They enjoy the reef, either diving, snorkeling. Tourism provides 1 in 4 jobs. So tourism is really a big income earner for Belize.
I used to be a fisherman. I grew up fishing on the waters of Belize. And of course, I used to fish for lobster, spearfish, and conch. Now I'm in the tourist business. I started guiding about 20 odd years ago on the snorkeling, fishing, and mainland tours. Now I'm an owner of Hurricane Ceviche Bar and Grill. One of the best ceviches in town, of course. In my business, since I started, I had learned more about nature conservation. And nowadays, our goal is to preserve the reef, the mangrove ecosystems for our future families.
That we are not producing the emissions that are causing climate change. These emissions are being created by countries far away from us. And so we have to appeal now to the international community that they need to change the way they're doing transportation. They need to change the way they're farming. They need to be able to live more in harmony with the environment as we used to do in the past. Unless they change the way they're doing business, I will be unable to leave anything for my children and for my grandchildren.
This is a rhythm from Trinidad, where the mighty sparrow is the dad. Also then we hear it in Panama, where the great Lord Cora, he was the boss, and we
Calypso in Kawita with the Kaweban. I want the people to understand. All the way the violent play the Calypso just with a pan. But when you want to hear Calypso, Kawita is the town you must go. To listen to our father of Calypso, nobody else but the great mighty Segundo Gavitwa. Calypso in Kawita with the Kaweban. I want the people to understand. All the way the violent play the Calypso just with a pan. Calypso must be up on the shelf. We need our government to give us help. We want the culture music to life, because it is a way that we must survive and we follow.
The world is at a major crossroads. It has to decide whether it wants to act now to save our oceans or doom the state of our oceans. Belize is an example that shows that there still exists healthy ecosystems, but if we continue along the same path of really ignoring the impacts of climate change, we are damning countries like ours to poverty.
I want my people to understand. All the way the violent play the Calypso just with a pan. Calypso in Kawita with the Kaweban. I want my people to understand. All the way the violent play the Calypso just with a pan.
In December 2013, a few hours of rain on Christmas Eve devastated several islands of the Eastern Caribbean, causing loss of life, unimaginable suffering, loss of infrastructure. I mean, it was horrible, and this was a few hours of rain. Imagine a world where events like that become the norm, become more frequent, become more intense. This is the type of scenario that we're heading into if something isn't done soon, and if the action that has to be taken isn't ambitious. The science tells us what is required. Temperature increase must remain below 1.5 degrees Celsius. That's our safest chance, and we need to take it.
Our population, our people, our livelihoods, our ability to have a functional and proper life from this point onward is going to get harder. And we have to find a way out of this.
Beaches are eroding everywhere. The fishes are dying day by day. Where the sea life gone? Where the jacks they're gone? Where the herring they're gone? Where the sprats they're gone? Where the crayfish gone? Preserve your country and listen to me. Preserve Boko Reef. Right here, the Tobago. Preserve your country. I want you to know 105.5 degrees. I want you to stay alive. Preserve your country. Here in Tobago.
The global warming in the atmosphere in the whole world. The big nations who have the big money, you know, they have to do something, because we to be going in Trinidad, we don't have the money that Japan, China, France, England have. But you know, we have to try to conserve. We have to try to conserve. When you go to the beaches to have your fun, pick up all the trash before you go. Don't leave cups and glass and cup in the sand. I want a clean environment for the young generation. Where the sharks is gone, where the crawfish gone, where the shrimps are gone, where the parrots gone, where the ducks gone, where the turtle gone. Reversible reef in Tobago, environment bed in Tobago, where the shrimps they gone, where your husband gone, where your wife that's gone. I want to stay alive up in the environment 105 degrees to stay alive. I want to think they're gone. Everybody gonna say I'm in environment in the country. I want the whole world to listen to me. Bang 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 bang.
The politicians are lying. Coral reefs is dying. The fishes are dying. Whole world is crying. Garifuna is few but strong. Village life all day long. Let's stop this pollution if we can. 'Cause we don't need polluted land. Hopkins Village is my homeland. The village in Belize, we live in peace and harmony. Sell this village to nobody. Sell this village to nobody. Sell this village to nobody.
The main thing for the Caribbean and for small island states generally is that we want to see a reduction in emissions of greenhouse gases. If we can limit global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius, at least we have a 50% chance of being able to withstand the effects of climate change. 1.5 to stay alive.
Come